Chapter 25, An Especially Warm Invitation. It might not be a big deal to anyone else, but after all I'd been through with bugs, I thought it was a step forward that I could sit under our elderberry bush in complete darkness to listen in on what Jack was saying to Bree. Mostly it was things like, sure, I think, the red one. Bree was rattling on about her latest fashion magazine. The red one? Really? With that neckline? There was only one logical conclusion. Jack had lost his marbles. "Cassidy, are you out there?" Dad called from the back porch. "If so, would you mind investigating something in the front yard with me?" It was just over a week since I couldn't keep calm in an emergency, resulting in Officer Weston saving Miss Melton Mowry's life and getting a special pin for his uniform. At the ceremony, he made a nice speech about how my inability to follow directions helped save Miss Melton Mowry's life. We'd have far fewer choking deaths in this country if diners were willing to cause the kind of ruckus Cassidy Corcoran can. I think that was a compliment. In Calamity Jane fashion, I might as well skip the boring bits about how I got shouting at the top of her lungs and near lethal first impression removed from my permanent etiquette record. Our regular class ended too, and we had a parents' reception to celebrate. With all the extra hours I'd put in, I out-gestured Donna Parker and kept a group of health-conscious moms on the edge of their seats talking about the pros and cons of the Corcoran family's new Yonanas machine. I even knew it was time to stop when Miss Melton Mowry said, "Thank you for sharing the intricacies of banana transformation, Miss Corcoran." It was Saturday night, and Dad had promised a marshmallow roast in honor of my graduation from etiquette prison/school, but we had to wait for Jack to be ready. Since that didn't appear to be any time soon, I followed Dad to the front yard. One of the shop lights he uses in the garage was lying in the middle of the driveway, casting a strong beam on a pair of arms reaching up from the ground. Either the Michigan Film Office is scouting locations for a remake of Night of the Living Dead, or you've just been pranked. I kneeled on the grass and examined the arms. There was no doubt about it. I'd know those slender wrists anywhere. Misinformation. Either she was buried under our lawn or someone had dismembered her. Could it be Delton Bean? I pulled on one arm. It came out easily. Delton had wrapped a piece of florist's wire around the screw and inserted it into the lawn without damaging more than a blade or two of grass. I had to give him an 8.5 for technique. Still, I'd spent a bajillion hours in etiquette class for beheading her. How he thought he could dismember her and get away with it was beyond me. "I know you're out there, Delton," I shouted into the darkness. "I would imagine it's past Delton's bedtime," my dad said. "Jack? Jack's busy. Dad. Plus, he didn't have access. No, this has Delton's fingerprints all over it. He's here somewhere, probably with his mom, and they don't want me to know." Dad unplugged the extension cord and everything went dark. "I've never thought of bonding with you over pranks. Can I have my shop light back now?" I groped around for the other arm. Sure, I set off down the driveway, but I might need it later for interrogation purposes. "And where do you think you're going, Miss Corcoran?" "It's Saturday night, Dad. I'm going to search for the rest of misinformation." "Well, make sure you're back in 30 minutes. Your mother and I have a surprise for you." I stopped. "A good surprise?" "Yes, in fact, a good surprise." When I got to Delton's house, I pushed the arms behind a row of flower pots on the porch just in case he was acting alone and Mrs. Bean did not know about this. Let the record show that Cassidy Corcoran is not a snitch. With the items in question stowed, I rang the doorbell. "Oh, Cassidy, how nice to see you." Mrs. Bean looked over her shoulder, a little doubtful. "I think Delton's in his PJs, but He can stay in his pajamas, Mrs. Bean, as long as you'll let him on the front porch. I need to ask him something." "You're sure you don't want to come in?" "No, thank you." Did that just come out of my mouth? Who says no thank you when just no would do? It came as no surprise to me that Delton wore airplane pajamas. "Cassidy, there's something I have to tell you," he said before I could get a word in edgewise. "You're darn right there's something. I want you to explain." I broke off, grabbing the arms from where I'd stowed them. "This. Where is the rest of misinformation? I just got sprung from etiquette class, Delton, and if you—" "Oh, that's easy. Misinformation belongs to me now. Miss Melton Mowry gave her to me. Well, to us. Me and my mom, that is." "And why would she do that?" "Because she's retiring from teaching etiquette classes to focus on her videos." I waved away a hungry mosquito with one of Misinformation's hands. "Not following, Delton. I told you my mom was in information systems. Well, she applied some SEO techniques to drive more web traffic to Miss Melton Mowry's website. Speak English, Delton. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. It's all about finding how people search for what you want to sell and matching those key phrases with your web content. After she did that, Mom set up Miss Melton Mowry's video channel and her website with a commission-driven advertising company that placed ads to appeal to her audience. The real money comes from finding items related to etiquette for sale online and linking them on your site. The clickables there are up to 80 cents per. Cloth napkins were a huge hit. Okay, whatever. I'm getting eaten alive here. Cut to the chase. She made $400 in the first week. Mom thinks if she focuses on generating quality original content, she can double that. It's a lot easier than trying to teach kids in the classroom. Plus, she wouldn't have to travel so much. But wouldn't she want misinformation for the videos? No, she's too hard to bend. I'm afraid she doesn't translate well to the screen. Where's the rest of her then, Delton? Why'd you take her apart? Be right back. Delton went into the house and returned with a set of car keys. We walked over to the car parked in the driveway. I peered in the windows. Back here, he said, and popped the trunk. There, in the trunk of Mrs. Bean's car, lay the pieces of misinformation. We had to dismantle her to fit, Delton said. Neither Mom nor I was certain that Dad would endorse this plan. What plan? I looked at poor misinformation, whose head and legs were piled on top of her torso. Miss Melton Mowry didn't know how to thank Mom for all the work she's done. When she told her she was going to sell a bunch of her stuff to pay us, I suggested we take misinformation in trade. Cassidy, you have to admit these body parts could make some pretty good pranks. Delton had a point. The one on my lawn was sweet. And you probably want to up your game, seeing as we are heading into middle school. Wait, how did I get pulled into this? I asked for misinformation for us, you, me, Jack. Miss Melton Mowry liked the idea. She said if it wasn't for your lack of composure, she wouldn't be with us today. I considered what it might mean to go in on pranks with Delton Bean in middle school. Then I was hit by a vision of her toes, which I'd get Bree to cover in pink nail polish, sticking out of a locker. To further prove myself as a prankster, I sent your friend, Miss Olivia Dunn, a package. You what? How did you crack that code? It took me a while. It was an interesting variation on the Pigpen cipher, which uses fragments of a grid to signify letters or numbers. I wrote her back for you. Seriously? What did she say in her letter? What did you say? I can show you the letter if you like. She reported on various camp activities. It's an all-girls camp, so there was some skinny dipping, putting baking soda in the cook's chili. She finally mastered the double flip, but doubts her parents will allow her to do it on the slopes until she's a legal adult and no longer relies on them financially. She left several instructions for what you should send to satisfy her sweet tooth. I bet she did. In keeping with her and your mercurial style, I wrote her back using a Caesar cipher. There are 25 possibilities. Usually you give the code reader a clue, but to make it extra frustrating, I accidentally tore the letter there, so it's impossible to tell. It will probably take her all summer to go through the possibilities. What did you say? I took one of my mother's old candy boxes and filled it with peanut shells. On the note, I wrote, Dear Olivia, I prefer cracking peanuts at a Tigers game to cracking code during my summer vacation. Hope you're having loads of fun flipping and skinny dipping. Have to run. Am jumping a train this PM. Cassidy. She thought she was getting chocolates and the box was full of peanut shells, and you sent it all in impossible to read code? It seemed in character with one of your pranks, as well as the phrase loads of. That's not a phrase I typically use. Delton, normally I would congratulate you. It's the perfect prank. But I stopped talking. I was picturing Livy all excited to open her box of chocolates from me, only to find garbage and an impossible to read code. For a moment I was there with her, watching it happen and feeling her disappointment. You didn't put any chocolates in at all? I didn't. I didn't think that would be in character. Delton put his hand on my shoulder. Cassidy, are you all right? I shrugged it off. Of course I am. Good, because that's not what I wanted to tell you earlier. I wanted to say that I knew I was in trouble when Delton assumed his dining posture. Well, I never realized that making pranks with you would be so much fun. That and discovering you were an actual girl at the luncheon. Delton cleared his throat. The next logical question would be to ask if you would... Delton! I clapped Miss Information's hand over his mouth. Don't ruin this perfectly good gift of code cracking and body parts with a subject that's not fit for polite conversation. I tossed the arms into the trunk and slammed it shut. Now go inside and go to bed. I gotta go home. But I didn't go home right away. Instead, I sat on the curb outside Delton's house trying to figure out what was happening to me on the inside. Why didn't Delton's prank make me want to hug myself tight to keep from bursting out laughing? I put my hands on my stomach and felt around for my organs. They felt complicated. End of chapter 25.